We start with yet more belligerent behaviour by North Korea. The regime fired 3 missiles into the East Sea in the early hours of this morning. It's currently unclear whether they were ballistic missiles or not, but it's still being seen as another provocation. It's the latest message to the international community that North Korea has no intention of scaling back its weapons programs. Kwon Jang-ho starts us off.
At 6:49 a.m. South Korea time, the first of 3 missile launches were detected. The latter 2 were fired within the next half an hour. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, they were fired from Gitdaeryong in the eastern part of Gangwon-do Province, flying some 250 kilometers into the East Sea. Seoul has said it believes the projectiles to be 300mm artillery rockets fired from a multiple rocket launcher. However, the U.S. Pacific Command says its assessment indicates they were short-range ballistic missiles, adding that the second missile exploded almost immediately after launch. The launches are being interpreted as a protest against the joint South Korea-U.S. military drills called the Ulchi Freedom Guardian, which began this week. Pyongyang labels the exercises as a provocative rehearsal for an invasion, while South Korea and the U.S. insist they're purely defensive in nature. President Moon Jae-in convened a National Security Council meeting in the morning where they vowed not to be rattled by the latest provocations and proceed more thoroughly with the drills. This latest missile provocation comes after 2 successful ICBM launches last month. Since then, new UN sanctions have been imposed and a war of words between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un escalated, with the US territory of Guam threatened and the international community on edge. However, after weeks of no missile activity from North Korea, the US had started to express hope that perhaps the regime was starting to back down. On Tuesday, US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said he was pleased to see the regime had demonstrated some level of restraint, while President Trump said he respected Kim Jong-un was starting to respect the US. Saturday's launch could be seen as a rejection of that claim. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.